name is Jack, and growing up, my younger brother and I, who's 2 years younger than me, had a complicated and somewhat difficult childhood. I won't go too much into details, private and personal, but there were a lot of occasions where my brother and I, whose name is Brian, would move around the country a lot and live with different relatives and sometimes friends. This one time, I think I was about 10 and Brian was 8. Our dad was driving us across the country for a reason I can't remember. I don't know what time it was, but I know it was dark and late. When we finally stopped for the night at a motel, it was even darker. After checking into our room, which was on the ground floor, our dad said he was leaving to do something and he'll be back soon. He said he'll bring back a pizza and told us to not leave the room. There was nothing to do in our room and we didn't know how to work the TV, so I suggested that we play hide and seek. Brian was to be the seeker. I left the room and ran upstairs to the floor above us, around the corner behind an ice machine, and waited. I had a clear view over the motel and could see Brian looking around for me. I remember standing behind the ice machine giggling and watching my brother walk around the motel in the pool area looking for me. Then the door behind me slowly creaked open, revealing a large man that looked to be in his late 40s. Had a dirty white tank top on, and he seemed overweight. He asked me in a friendly voice what I was doing. I told him I was just playing hide and seek. He then asked me if I was playing with my parents. I told him no, just my younger brother. At this point, Brian was upstairs and found me talking to the man. The man asked if our parents knew we were playing hide and seek. Brian spoke up and said no, our dad left us. The man then asked Brian and I if we wanted to come inside to watch cartoons, and he had some cookies and milkshakes for us as well. Me and Brian looked at each other and then looked back at the man and said, okay. And we entered the man's motel room. We sat down on the bed and the man turned the TV on and he put on some cartoons. I can't remember what cartoons it was though. He then said he would be right back and was going to get our milkshakes and cookies. The man went into the bathroom. I got up and I took a look into the bathroom to see what the man was doing. I was confused at why he didn't go in the kitchen. He had 2 glasses of water and then put a little bit of white powder in each glass, thinking at the time it was just the ingredients to make a milkshake. I sat back down on the bed. When the man finally came out of the bathroom, he handed me and Brian a glass each. He said, "Here's your milkshakes." It didn't look like milkshakes at all, at least not one that I've ever had. It looked like it was just water with white powder floating around. I suddenly had this bad feeling in the pit of my stomach telling me I was definitely in danger and we needed to leave. Brian was about to take a sip of his drink. I stopped him and the man was still watching us, just silent. Out of nowhere, the man just asked us, "What's wrong? Drink your milkshake." This time in a much less friendlier tone than he had been speaking to us before. I looked at the man, and he was looking at me, waiting for me to speak. I then said, "We always eat cookies first before we drink our milkshakes." The man let out an irritated sigh and went back into the bathroom. I put the glass down on the floor and quietly did the same with Brian's. I grabbed Brian's arm and quickly exited the man's room. We ran around the corner and down the stairs into our motel room. I turned out the lights and I kept watch out the window. After about 5 minutes, the man came down the stairs and started his car. I was feeling a bit of a relief, thinking he was just about to leave the motel. But he got out of the car and looked directly at the window I was looking through and started approaching our room. I remember panicking at the moment, thinking that the man was about to take us. He was getting closer to our door when our dad pulled up and asked the guy what he was doing. The man didn't say anything and just walked away and went to his car and drove off. We never saw him again. When our dad asked us who that man was, we told him we didn't know. Brian and I never spoke about this incident again to anyone. I sometimes have nightmares about if we did drink that man's drink and what would have happened to us if we did, or if our dad didn't come back in time.
When my cousin was around 7 years old, His room was in the basement. The basement level was half underground and half above ground. His room had a window, and his bed was right next to the window. One night, out of the blue, he wakes up and opens his eyes, and there's a man crouched right outside the window staring at him. He didn't know what to do, so he just froze for a second, and then turned over in bed and turned his back to the guy, and eventually fell asleep. Why he didn't run screaming to his parents' room is something that I will never understand. This went on for a while. On random nights, the stranger would come and stare at him through the window. Sometimes he would actually tap on the glass with his finger. On the opposite wall of the window was a mirror, so one night, when my cousin noticed the stranger was there, and he turned over in bed so as to not have to look at the guy, the stranger shined a flashlight and bounced the beam of light into the mirror to illuminate my cousin's face, as if to say, "I can see you." But the worst part was this. One night the stranger finally got bold and began to push on the window to see if it would open, but luckily the window was locked. To this day, my cousin has no idea who the guy was, or what he wanted, or what he would have done had the window been unlocked that night.
We all know about the game called Among Us, but not everyone knew about it back in 2018. I downloaded the app back when it first came out, along with a few of my friends and some of their friends. We play a lot of games where it was just us and no one else. There was my friend Gianna, who would always invite this guy named Tyler, but I didn't know him and the rest of us didn't know him either. It went maybe a month of playing every day to every other day, but I couldn't stand that guy Tyler. He would always try to turn everyone against each other and would get mad that I call him out. So one day, I told everyone that I won't play with them again if Tyler continues to play. So everyone, including Gianna, chose to not play with Tyler anymore. That decision was made while we were in the middle of a game, and Tyler was voted out. Before he left, he said he'd see me around. We all laughed sarcastically and said that he's mad and he's a tough guy. The next day, I was just getting home from school like I usually do and ate some food. My older brother had a basketball game because he played for the varsity team in our high school. So my family left me because I just wanted to stay home. As I were laying down in bed in my room, which is on the first floor near the back of the house, I heard my back fence move. I looked out of my window and I saw that the light came on because it was dark by this time. I didn't see anything or anyone, so I continued watching TV and texting. I then began to doze off. The knock on my window immediately woke me up completely. I looked out the window, and standing there was some guy in a black Nike hoodie, black sweatpants with a pipe in his hand. The guy smiled at me and said, "Hey, I'm Tyler. What's up now?" He hit my window with the pipe, and it cracked the window, then ran to my back door. I called my parents and started to scream and yell. They were actually pulling up to the house from the game, getting ready to walk in. I ran out of the front door, and I'm guessing that guy ran away hopping my back fence. I called Gianna and asked her how he knew where I lived. She told me that he was actually her boyfriend from another school, and threatened her if she wouldn't give him my address. I've never been so afraid in my life. And I also never knew anyone could get that mad over video games. About 20 years ago, when I was 5 going on 6, I dressed up as Pennywise the clown for Halloween. I wore the costume all day due to my school letting us wear them for parties in our classes. When we were dismissed from school, my father met me with a pleasant surprise. He was dressed in a yellow raincoat and had a hat on, and he was Georgie from the movie It. He held my hand as we went to the car, then we drove home. A few hours go by, and my father took me out to go trick-or-treating because my mother wasn't feeling too well. The night went on as scheduled, kids bombarding doors for candy, teenagers scaring each other, and parents losing their kids. Everyone loved our costumes. Again, I was Pennywise the Clown and he was Georgie from the 1990 It. My father held my hand in between each house and waited at the end of each driveway. One house took longer than others, and I remember that I was very anxious. Once I received my candy, I remember that there were more people than usual, and I had to run through a crowd to get to my father. I reached him, held his hand, and off we went, but it was the opposite direction of where we initially were going. I didn't think anything of it because of how young I was. We went down one of the dark back streets where our garbage was picked up for some reason, and we were walking unusually fast. I remember that I said, "Daddy," but my father started moving faster and didn't answer me. Then all of a sudden, I heard my name yelled out from about 25 yards behind us, and it was my father's voice. I looked back and it was my father. I looked up at the person that I was walking with, and he had on the same costume as my dad, but when I looked closer, I noticed it wasn't him. I looked at my dad and yelled out to him. The man then let me go, and as soon as he saw my father, he started running, and my father was running full speed at us. The man took off down the alley, then through a backyard. My father reached me, and he was out of breath while he was hugging and kissing me, also asking me if I was okay. My father called the cops and explained to them that he lost track of me in a huge crowd at one of the houses, and that there was some sick guy roaming our neighborhood. Once we got home, he told my mother everything that happened. He told her that a crowd gathered and some random guy with some costume, the same as him, walked up to him while I approached the porch. He told her that the guy said I was a cute kid. They wanted to just snatch me up in a joking manner. Then the crowd gathered even more, and he lost track of me until he saw us turn the corner onto the back street, and that's when he started to run after us and yell my name. Now looking back, I bet my father was losing his mind and probably wanted to kill that guy when he saw us together. Until this day, I'm grateful that my father found us when he did, because who knows what would have happened to me.